Welcome to the 20th Annual Brattleboro Literary Festival. I'm Charles Nord, Poetry Coordinator for the festival. We're excited today to present two wonderful editors of their new book, Another World, a book that has been many years in the making of children's and young adults poetry. But before we hear from them and the poets themselves, just want to mention to you that you can submit questions to Ann and Tony and the young poets via the Q&A button on your screen. If your question has already been submitted, click the thumbs up icon to upvote the question. There will also be links in the chat to purchase the book and to donate to the festival. A special thank you to our sponsors. So I'm going to just say a few words about Tony and Ann, and then read a little bit about the book and turn the computer, the video, the audio, everything over to Ann and Tony. Tony Gengarelly is a professor emeritus of fine arts at Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. His academic background and interests are varied, along with survey courses in American civilization and Western art history. His teaching career has included literature, political science, modern and decorative art, and museum studies. He has also taught on the Navajo Nation and introduced Dine weaving and sand painting, along with the Santero art of the American Southwest, to his college students. For the past several years, his work has focused on the creative process and its social and cultural cross-currents. Since 1999, Tony has taught art and bookmaking for the Poetry Studio summer workshops in Marlborough, Vermont. He's been drawn especially to the outsider features of young people's art, its unfettered focus and originality, its direct communication of complex ideas and emotions through color and line, its use of word and image with creative and powerful expression. Tony's wife, Ann Gengarelly, has been a poet in residence in every school in Brattleboro, also in Putney, Dummerston, Newfane, Marlborough, virtually every school in southeastern Vermont, as well as neighboring towns in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. She is the director of the Poetry Studio at her home in Marlborough, Vermont, where during her past 25 years, she has offered after-school programs in poetry and art for students from kindergarten to 8th grade. The studio also runs summer workshops that features poetry, art, and bookmaking with a focus on the natural world. Since 2002, Ann has taught studio creative writing classes for adults as well, gathering together participants ranging in age from their 20s to their 70s, and creates a rich and extraordinary community. She has had the privilege to teach workshops from 2000 to 2010 on the Navajo Nation at Little Singer Community School in Bird Springs, Arizona. In many ways, the indigenous practice of community, the inclusion of young people with elders, has informed the composition of her studio classes. So a little bit about this book, which has been many years in the making, over a decade. The collection of poems selected by Ann and Tony in this wonderful new book called Another World focuses on a lot of the work that the children and the young adults have written and chosen for this anthology over time, over these past 1 or 2 decades. It contains startlingly wise, lucid, and original lyric poems. By allowing the students simply to find their own stations among the flowers, trees, and bushes of their resplendent garden, and providing prompts that focus on myth-making, the transformative other, self-examination, nature, and the sublime voice within, Ann and Tony have created a safe, idyllic setting for their students to write, draw, and paint. Another World contains a diverse range of the startling poems and drawings their gentle pedagogy has inspired in their students over the past decade. You need to hear these poems. I'm going to read just one as the last part of my introduction. It's titled Another World. And Ann and Tony will remind me of the author as soon as I finish this. This must be another world, far from the blood and the violence, sheltered from pain and death. Poppy, scarlet, chalice can have nothing to do with our blood-stained newsprint. These gentle flowers, white frilled trumpets, have no relation to our drums of war. The beauty of purple iris, tall and stately, stands unconnected to hate, unshadowed by murder or disease. The unmarked purity of a white peony, petals tightly knotted, shielding leaves beginning to curl slowly away, is not related to anger or guns, and the day lilies, tender golden trumpets, do not voice the harsh call of war. And I think we're going to hear more of these poems, but I just want to finish my introduction with this wonderful quote by Naomi Shihab Nye. It's a blurb for the book. These students' poems and art are so beautiful and refreshing. They ring of truth in a time of lies. We need them. So Tony and Ann, please step in here and introduce us to some of these young poets and tell us a little more about the book and its genesis, as well as some of the high points of your teaching and of your nurturing over the course of the past decade. And I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Shard. I just want to give credit to Hannah Christensen, who wrote that poem at the age of 10. I read that poem sometimes to my adult groups, and they are in awe that a 10-year-old could have written that poem. So thank you so much, Shard. It is a real privilege for us to share our book, Another World, in the Literary Festival, and to have others witness the profound voices of our youth and the beautiful art. I'm going to start by reading the dedication to the book. Love and appreciation beyond measure to the young people who have been the impetus and inspiration for this book. Profound gratitude, not only for their extraordinary poetry and art, but also for the in-between spaces where earnest and lively conversations invited us to explore the many dimensions of the human condition. Ultimately, words can never do justice to the process that takes place in the creation of making a poem or drawing. There is a mystery here we can never fathom, let alone put into words. What we do know is our deep admiration for the students' poems and art that sing from these pages. The privilege of sitting with a student who has one foot on earth, the other often in the magical world of spirit, connects us to an intuitive knowing, a reminder to rehabilitate the idea of our larger nature. In so many ways, these young people have become our teachers. When the uncertainty of life assails us, how fortunate we are for these wise ones who invent maps to navigate our world, both beautiful and bewildering.
Claire, could we have the first slide, please? The image of the book.
Well, the order got mixed up, so.
Is Claire there?
Claire?
Claire?
Let's see. I see your picture up here.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
okay, we would, I think I'll continue, but
Okay.
we're supposed to see a cover of the book now.
Yeah.
All
She
right.
held it up briefly a minute ago. It was beautiful.
Thanks, Charlotte. It is a beautiful cover. So I would like to share some excerpts from the book's preface.
I just got a note, by the way, sorry, Ann, that from Claire, who said I'm unable to share, I'm unable to share the cover of the book right now. The host has disabled her, so maybe later she can come on.
Okay,
Give me a second, she says. So go ahead and she'll let us know.
all right.
Thanks, Sharon.
So I would like to share some excerpts from the book's preface with the hope that these words will provide a context for the tone of the Poetry Studio, where we recognize the urgency for empathy, where we recognize the importance for reverence, for slowing down and listening to the voice within and to one another. And in this listening, feel we are not alone. I would also like to share the epigraph to the preface. The seat of the soul is where the inner world and the outer world meet, by Novalis. To give a little background here, in 1995, the Poetry Studio opened its doors to young people ranging in age from 5 to 17 for after-school programs and summer workshops. Located on beautiful grounds in Marlborough, Vermont, the Poetry Studio provides an intimate lens through which to see the natural world and inspire a deep communion with nature. This connection welcoming the kind of harmony, balance about which the indigenous people speak. The studio atmosphere invites a marriage between inner and outer landscapes, where imagination and discovery are often imbued with magic. A stone walkway becomes a metaphor for the poet's sense of time. A twilight princess is called once more to paint the sky with crimson, lay down the dawn to sleep. Keeping the company of young people, we are convinced that poetry and art become gateways that lead to journeys where students explore territory that denies ordinary speech. To offer a shape to the loss of innocence, the injustices of the world, relationships with family and friends, the many facets of love and grief, can help to compose more awake and conscious beings, and hopefully a kinder world. The young people's capacity for wonder and wisdom, for compassion and deep questioning, and for seeing beneath the surface of the physical world lifts us beyond the mundane. Along with them, we experience the extraordinary ability to enter invisible realms, often crossing over bridges to mystery. This book reaches out to other young people who may well discover parts of themselves in these pages. Very quickly, these poems and works of art invite an I-thou connection, a word, a phrase, an image that immediately resonates with the reader. Being a witness for many years to the students' poetry and art, we hope teachers, parents, aunts, grandparents, counselors, librarians will see a dimension of young people not always recognized or valued. This recognition is especially critical in our culture, where the voices of our youth can be easily drowned by the noise of what seems important. In our world where vulnerability can be perceived as weakness, at the Poetry Studio, we bow to the students who travel inward and courageously offer messages of the heart.
Thank you, Claire. You can now remove it.
Okay,
Good. Thank you.
thank you. So I will be reading several poems, just a taste of what's in the book. The first poem is a lament, a plea for adults to listen to what young people really feel. This is a poem by Ezra Martyr, written at age 14. I have seen the bleak routine patterns of human nature. Time around us was like a carefully picked judgment. As adults forgot they were adults, kids stopped hoping. They just waited and watched, their tongues hanging out like dogs looking for love. And we watched, hoping we were more innocent than we felt. Ezra Martyr, written at age 14. Here's a poem where the poet speaks to a daylily. Lily, take me back to when I was oblivious to all the problems in the world. I'm afraid my eyes have become aware of every little wrinkle in the smooth fabric of our planet. Lily, take me back to when all I wished to do was run fast as I could, my hair flowing out behind me, guided by invisible fingers of the wind. Soak me in your petals, spread your warmth throughout my body. Take me back to when happiness was always a close friend. This voice is Shoshana Rosenzweig Davidovitz, written at age 10. Let's sip of water here. Untitled poem by Lily Sharkey Burren, written at age 10. Future is a girl of knowledge, a girl of knowing what will come, too afraid to shout it out, too afraid to tell the truth, only waits and watches the world go by, looking deep into the souls that litter the world, knowing what will come, knowing the truth, knowing the lies, not understanding, but understanding completely. A tear drops, making a stream that will become a river and an ocean, but still, nobody knows. Nobody wants to know. Nobody cares, but she knows, she cares. Lily Sharkey Burren, written at age 10. And the last poem I will be reading now is a poem called Secrets by Ellie Oliver, written at age 14. The way to the forest's heart is not through a trail that interrupts the drowsy murmur of the ferns. The secret of the forest's heart can never be told on a map. It is ever changing. It whirls and loops through sun-dappled glades, laced with spider webs. It dances on tiptoes across giggling brooks where the sun splashes among the pebbles. The secret of the forest lies within us all, and sometimes in finding it, we find ourselves. Ellie Oliver, written at age 14. So now we I would like to introduce the young people who will be reading. Frida Rossner will be reading first. Hi, Frida.
Hi. Is my audio all right?
It's great. It's
Okay, good. You never know with AirPods if their battery's too low, then you sound like a robot.
You sound really good.
Okay, good. So I have a little testimonial to share first about my experience at the studio with Ann and Tony. All right, and then I'll get into reading a few poems. Going to poetry classes at Ann and Tony's poetry studio has been a really special and valuable part of my life throughout my childhood. I've been able to take with me a love of language and interest in creative self-expression. There's also numerous positive memories that I carry with me. I spent so many happy and cozy afternoons writing, doing artwork and bookmaking in the poetry studio and in the beautiful gardens. I got to explore language and try out techniques of embodying inanimate objects or painting an emotion-based landscape with my words. Poetry has been an incredible tool for growth, creativity, and bonding. The environment that Ann and Tony foster is one of community and mutual support. From the very beginning, as a 6-year-old entering the studio for a summer session, it was both a welcoming space where there was an incredible amount of creative freedom and a space with certain expectations that we participate in certain practices to maintain a warm and productive space through tools like sitting like a mountain to listen to other poets and raising hands to share positive feedback on other poems. We established a sense of respect for each other and a sense of unity. I am so grateful to have had the privilege to grow up as a part of Ann and Tony's poetry community.
Thank you.
Well, that was a surprise, Frida. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And so then I have 4 poems to share, and I'll just pull them up really quick. Okay, so my first poem is titled A Mistake of the Wise Man. The wise man was wrong. The crack in my heart only grew. The place in between is a city of sadness, an oasis of happy memories dissolving in a pool of my tears. And that was written at age 12. The next poem is titled The Words Out of My Mouth, the Colors from My Eyes. I realized I was a cut flower when his anger-filled eyes came to rest upon me, and I wilted a little. I was enveloped by his fury, entirely submerged in shadow, languishing in the thick silence. So I tried to speak, but with a single look, he had taken my words and disposed of them neatly in color-coordinated piles at the bottom of the garbage bin. I warbled out a few incoherent syllables, which faded into nothing. So I closed my mouth with a soft, resonating thud, and the world around me lost its vibrancy, becoming a blurry black and white. Written at age 15. My third poem is titled An Ominous Orange. Shadows stretched across the hillside like long purple bruises in an ochre sky. The wind was dancing so fast that the leaves buzzed and whirred. In the commotion, the horizon reached up to devour the sun, but it left a ragged hole and a sudden stillness that silenced even the trees. Written at age 15. And my fourth poem and final poem is Untitled. Dark circles reside beneath my tired eyes, but I continue to dance, and my partner is the moon. But the music of the crickets is nostalgic, and I know the summer of late night dancing alone under star-spangled skies will not last forever. The wind steals a ribbon from my hair, and I leave it here among the stars. Written at age 13. Thank you.
Okay.
You're right.
Can you hear me? Yes? So Frida, thank you. That was such a treat. Oh my gosh, thank you. The next poet who will be reading is May Sperling. So we have something really to look forward to and hearing your poems, Maze.
So I'm going to be reading 3 poems today. And the first one I wrote at age 12, and it's called Determined. They say I'm not good enough, that I'm too different. They say I get lost in my own thoughts, that I won't come back. They say my mind works differently, that I chose the wrong path. They say I don't have the power, yet they have too much. They say I'm too determined, that my compass is jumbled up, but that's just who I am. And the next one I'm going to read is, I wrote this poem at age 11, and it's called The Girl Whose Heart Rose into the Sun. Long ago, the sun was dim and dark, faded and gray. Long ago, the birds did not sing of light and spring blossoms, but sang of discomfort and unforgivable deeds. But there was a girl who believed in the sun's reign, her belief like a ship anchored to the sea of her soul. Her heart, so illuminated, rose up into the sky, and instead of a cloak of darkness, a tapestry of love, woven from her fingertips, formed into the sun. Now the birds sing of light and spring blossoms. Now, instead of dark and dim, the sun hovers filled with beauty. And the last one I'm going to read, I wrote when I was 12, and it's called Daughter of the Milky Way. They say my dark side overcame me, that my thoughts for the world are bitter and cold. They say I'm the darkest at night, but at night, my love shines purest. At night, I run through sacred fields of ancestors, befriend the stars before they burst. At dawn, we sing to each other songs of ancient memories. At twilight, I sit on the Big Dipper, my long raven hair is blown by the wind to create the shadow that will cause the night to begin.
My voice.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. Maze, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I sit here remembering sitting with you in the studio when you wrote those poems, and actually how you came into the studio saying, I know what I want to write about, the girl whose heart rose, right? You had the first line right away. What a pleasure to hear you read, Maze. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just going to say one thing. Mom and Dad, you need to leave because there's 3 of me.
oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just,
Leave it.
never mind.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce Nane Pittman. What? The host has stopped us.
It's okay.
Okay. Are we all okay here now? Yes?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good. We're getting strange messages here. I'd like to introduce Nane Pittman, who will read one poem. Welcome, Nane. We're so glad you're here.
I'm going to be reading a poem called The Tree of Life, and I wrote it when I was 10.
And Nane, can you read a little bit louder?
The tree of life cherishes each thing from our existence to a speck of dust. Each branch holds a secret, just waiting to be found. She cradles the colors and uses the earth as a canvas. In summer, the flowers bloom on her branches. In autumn, one secret falls with her leaves. In winter, she appears regal and thoughtful. In spring, her trunk is one with the rain. Her roots planted in the garden of immortality reach down in the mud, pushing away the clumps of hatred. The universe is her blanket, stitched with the white of compassion and the pink of peace. Good night.
Nani, thank you so much. We're not going to really say goodnight to you. Thank you very much. A beautiful poem. We are so lucky to hear these voices. I'm going to introduce Megan Bathory Peeler, mother of Ella. So we really miss having Ella here, who's in Ohio in college, right? But we are so fortunate to have you read poems by Ella, reflections by Ella. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you, Ann and Tony. It's so wonderful to be here and have the honor of speaking my child's words, but also I'm just looking at who's participating today and recognizing so many fellow parents in the room, and to really be in the seat of holding the parents that held these and hold these writers and hold you and Tony and Trey and all the adult helpers through all the years. It's just, your work is extraordinary, and the depth of skill that it takes to hold and create the kind of space that you do with the intention that you do, to allow the brilliance of these children to come out. It's just, I bow down to you for that. So I'm going to start with Ella's reflection. She wrote a couple years ago when she was 18, and now she's 20 and in college. I started attending the summer workshops at the Poetry Studio when I was 7 years old, without a clue as to the role poetry would play in my coming years. I'm now 18 years old and use poetry to process my most intense and seemingly inexplainable emotions. The pressure of adolescence and the complexities of mental emotional growth are greatly underestimated. Children and teenagers are expected to be constantly producing, taking tests and exams, turning in papers, projects, and reflections, yet there is no time factored in for genuine reflection. Poetry has become my medium by which I reflect and dive into myself when the outside world fails to give me the time and space I need to do so. I would be a less centered person without poetry. Without the Poetry Studio, I wouldn't have the tranquil, open, and respectful relationship with poetry that I do now. Ann, Tony, Trey, and the many other adults I worked with at the Poetry Studio opened their hearts to me in a way that showed respect and honest curiosity to the anxious and scared 7-year-old who hesitantly followed her mama into the studio doors. Because of their transparency and open hearts, that worried little girl grew into the confident young woman I am proud to be today. The Poetry Studio is my oasis and my place of breath. It is my home I never want to leave and will always return to. It is my place of comfort, introspection, strength, vulnerability, and growth. And I can say without hesitation that all of that is very, very true for my daughter. And in fact, the night before we were going to load the car up to go to college, she drove herself up to write with Ann and Tony. And so there aren't really that many words that I can add to that. I do want to encourage people, when you get the book, it's extraordinary to hold this book and take in the art and all these just exquisite words. At the beginning, so often we skip the beginning, the preface, Anne read and the introduction, but she and Tony each wrote essays about their process. And I really want to encourage writers and readers alike to spend some time. It's really, I'm a performing artist, and so it's like getting a glimpse into the backstage life and the artistry and the hard work that goes into creating space where magic can happen. Getting to shine a little bit of light on how all that process works, but the rituals and the constancy and the commitment to holding a container and the value of that, especially I think for children in this world, in this time. And Tony really writes so eloquently about, and as Ella said, transparently about their process. And it's just beautiful. So I was moved and hope you will be too. So I'm going to finish with a poem of Ella's called Late Gratitude. The maple didn't appreciate what she had until it was gone. She didn't welcome the child's companionship until it was too late. She thought she disliked the rope swing and the child that went with it hanging from her wrist until the rope and the joy disappeared. She wished she had relaxed, watching the boy dance around her, snatching leaves from the air. She wished she had laughed, tossing the boy playfully back and forth. She wished she had loved the boy and had told him how she felt. If only she had found her heart in time. Ella wrote that at age 15. Thank you, everyone. Anne and Tony, if you're speaking, I think you'll have to unmute.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce a very special person, Trey Wedgeworth, who has been my assistant teacher for over 10 years, right, Trey? And has a,
sounds about right.
All right. So Trey can speak about what he's going to read. I don't know how many poems Trey's reading, but we are lucky to hear his voice. Thank you, Trey.
Well, and thank you, Anne, for all of your work with the Poetry Studio. It's been such a privilege to work with so many talented young people. And when I say talented young people, I feel truly that every young person has talent, and Anne has a unique skill in asking them to step forward and be themselves and speak from their hearts, and witnessing that process over the last decade has really changed me. I learn every time I enter into that space, and I'm so appreciative for all of the time that I've been privileged to have with the students who are here with us today, and so many others who are not able to be with us on this panel. So I have quite a pile of poems. Anne sent me a list of poems that maybe I might want to read. I've printed them all out. I don't know that I'll be able to get to all of them, but we'll begin first with this poem by Erin LeBlanc, which she wrote at age 12, called Blossoming Words. What if every flower bloomed a word? What if each stalk was a sentence? What would you hear with your eyes? What if each flower does bloom a word carried in its heart, a word we can hear, not see, a word that we maybe imagine, but was always meant to be? The rose of Sharon would blossom not in petals, but in delicious, dreamy words, fanciful, graceful, and delight would grace its stalk, which would speak in sentences of beauty, The leaves might whisper pastel sunsets, rippling lakes, and full moons. Hydrangeas would bloom in clusters of letters, forming words like secret, peace, and promise. Black-eyed Susans would laugh, singing words joy, welcome, and happy ending. The hibiscus would grandly display words of a queen, importance, perfection, glory. The garden would be bursting with words, words that tickle the tongue, words sweet like a summer evening, words that blossomed, words meant to fill a garden, words that were always there, waiting for a listener. And that's such a beautiful picture of the time in the summer at the poetry studio of the students scattering about the gardens and saying, oh, what is this flower? Can I sit with this flower and listen to it and speak to it and hear what it has to say to me? And the mixing of senses as well, of what we hear and what we see and what we smell and what we remember, and how they all come together when you're open to it. And that is so much a piece of the poetry studio. This poem is called Little Pine. Little pine, embracing her stone slope. Little pine, standing proud in the shadows of her tall neighbors. Little pine, shielding the spider's fragile nest from the reckless wind. Teach me to love the stone that blocks my path. Teach me to stand even when cast into darkness. Teach me to protect the spider unconditionally and ask for nothing in return. And this poem was written by Ellie French at the age of 13. And the lessons that the students find in the natural world and in their own dreams and their own imaginations are so profound. And hearing from them the things that we all, no matter our age, no matter where we are, the things that we all need to do is one of the gifts that I hope can pass to you all as you hear these poems today, and also as you're able to sit with them with this amazing book that Ann and Tony have spent so long putting together. This poem is called Never Without You by Claire Holmes. Last November, I saw my doubt in a wolf's body. He turned his head sharply, eyes an icy blue and thick gray fur, soft like wings. Then he ducked under the trees, tail nodding in the wind. But I still see him dawdling in the throat of my mind. And Claire wrote that at age 12. There are so many different voices at the poetry studio, and this one is very different than some of the others that I've read so far. In reading these aloud to you all, I can hear the voices of the poets in my mind, and it transports me back. This poem is called Beautiful by Emma Springer. Beautiful, like the dress she would wear Christmas night, red and green and white, and the lipstick she would wear to make her look all right, red, silver, and bright. Beautiful, like the shoes she broke when she ran to have fun with just a couple of friends, high on hope. She was thoughtless, full of laughter, always laughing, dancing till dawn, father angry. Beautiful, like her heart, the one she would give away too often, a heart half gone, yet fully open, her heart a painting, 1,000 little mistakes made into something amazing. She is art, her arms the paintbrushes, her body the canvas. Beautiful, like her ears, she promised to listen to herself more often. She heard it all, everything she wanted to hear. She promised to hear, ears wide open. Beautiful, she told herself, when down and under the weather, makeup smeared, paintings ruined. Beautiful, she said aloud and vowed to get better. That was Emma Sprenger at age 14. This poem is called The Girl from the River by Willa Redden. She stands there, up to her ankles, letting the river rush over her feet. I've heard stories of how she got there, but never the same one twice. Some say her whole family drowned. Others say she ran away from home. But today, as I watch her in her blue jean overalls and sun-bleached hair dancing in the wind, she looks so peaceful. And for a second, I'm jealous of the girl from the river. And Willa wrote that at age 13. Couple more poems here. This is an untitled poem written by Ezra Martyr, whose voice we heard earlier. And there's such a range of emotions and experiences that our young people have and hold. And in some spaces, we encourage them to, talk about the positive and what delights them and what fascinates them. And the poetry studio is absolutely a space for that. But the poetry studio is also a space for our students who are going through rough times. And this poem really speaks to me of the depth of feeling that our young people have. Why did you lie to me? People would say. I hate that word, lie. It makes you feel fake, like you're putting on a costume for the world to see. I know they felt betrayed, but how could I fix that? People look at you differently. They want to know what you would have been if not for your lousy choice of what to be. I don't like that word choice, when in fact you had no decision. And that was Ezra Martyr, written at age 13. This poem is by Marushka Rosner and is titled, I Am the Bird That Flutters Against Your Window in the Morning. I am the bird that helps you through your despair. As the wind blows, I am there to ease you into rising from your crippled dreams. Morning is over. Now you have forgotten your nightmares. The interchangeable day goes on. High in the sky, you can see me watching, waiting for you to call me to your aid. Even you know that I will one day evaporate into nothing but your dreams of beautiful days to make you happy, but you still wait for the perfect time to call me. I am the bird that sounds like no other, looks like the sun so bright you can see me from miles away. Rise that Tuesday morning, but let me wake you for the last time. Darkness will disappear. And I think I'll end on that poem. And I hope that these voices can be for you that call to wake you for the last time and allow darkness to disappear. Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you to everybody who contributes and contributed to the poetry studio.
Oh, thank you, Trey. It is always such a privilege to hear your voice be the vessel that carries the students' poetry. I am so grateful to you, Trey. Thank you so much. We are now, thank you, moving on to Tony, who will be offering a slideshow. So
I am privileged to be here today and able to contribute the image part to this. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, we had a little technical difficulty there. Anyway, I'm privileged to be here to share with you what I've been able to do with Ann over the last 10 years to bring imagery into the process of creating the poetry. And in fact, though, always has an art table available for the students, and art has always been an integral part of what she does. But to bring it into a more formal context and give it some elevation, it has been my privilege, and I'm delighted to be here to speak with you about it. Could I have the next image, please? All right, what we're looking at here is just a lovely self-portrait by Louisa Eichelberger. She uses here collage and colored markers. She's age 5, and it's just an extraordinary expression of the joy of life that she feels at the time. Another World features a selection of drawings, paintings, and decorative presentations that complement the creative practice that takes place at the Poetry Studio, where art supports the expression of language and language inspires art. During the studio's after-school programs in the fall and spring, an art table is set up to serve the students' need to draw and paint as they create their poems. Sometimes a student will first experiment with an idea for a poem through a drawing or a painting. Most always, the students enjoy illustrating their poems and spend quite a bit of focused time with 1 or 2 pictures that complement their writing. These illustrations will most often reiterate aspects of the poem's content in a free and inventive style, thereby reinforcing their meaning. At times, the art will help to complete the poem with the use of images to expand necessary details or infuse emotions into the words. This is a picture now of Louisa, as we talked about it earlier. I'm going to read you the words that she wrote that accompanied this illustration and see what you think in terms of her description of her inside as opposed to her outside, which is more evident, it seems, in the drawing. Myself, by Louisa Eichelberger, written at age 5. My skin is as smooth as the inside of a shell. My eyes are the color of peppercorns and as bright as the stars. Inside I have silence, a quiet like a fallen petal. When I'm quiet, I sit in a rocking chair, dreaming about summer on a windy winter day. My inside is warm with love and kindness. Anne says I listen as carefully as a deer listening for a rustle of leaves. Louisa, a special poet. Next slide, please. Now what we're looking at here is a picture by Chloe Rosner, Cold Waiting, which is the title of her poem, both done at the age of 8. And it's a personification which will soon manifest itself as we read the poem. Waiting. Grapevine is an old man, shoulders hunched over, wrinkled fingers reaching out, hoping one day to grasp a young cloud. The old man hums to himself as he waits. He hums a slow and steady tune, dawn to dusk. He still waits this very day. Chloe Rosner, written at age 8. Next slide, please. Here we have a wonderful drawing by Maya Castro Santos to accompany her poem, Reflection. And as we read the poem, I think you'll see how the picture reinforces, shall we say, the limits of what the poet sees, yet the language takes us further in. Reflection. I hear voices softly singing as I look into the pond. I see the reflections of trees and flowers. I see the reflections of myself. The wavering images dance and twinkle as sunlight strokes the water. The reflections keep singing, beckoning me closer, inviting me into their realm. What if there was a whole other world behind every reflection, in every pool or mirror, a whole new place to discover? The reflections sing, come closer, and I reach out my hand to enter their world, but as my finger touches the smooth surface, the silvery ripple shatters the image, and the reflection is gone, the song is gone. Maya Castro Santos, written at age 12. Next slide, please. This lovely image and the poem that accompanies it, done by Tess Bogart at age 8. Looking at that abstraction, though it may be, you get a real sense of how special this angel is. Oh, special angel. Oh, special angel, will you be my guardian spirit? When I'm lonely, will you put happiness inside me? When I'm sad, will you hug me with your silvery wings? When thunder scares me, please smile at me. When I'm angry, put a flower in my heart. Tess Bogart, written age 8. Could I have the next slide, please? Now, this is an interesting juxtaposition between an image created by Ella Bathory Peeler for a title page of her book called Defiled by Society, with a poem that talks about My Broken World by Ava Rosenberg-Davidovitz. And you'll see when I read the poem how the two go together so well. My broken world. Everything around me is broken. Earthquakes that leave houses crumbled like breadcrumbs, people's spirits cracked like shattered glass. I do not understand why the universe is dawdling and not fixing our broken world. Ava Rosenberg-Davidovitz, written at age 10. Can I have the next slide, please? Encouraged by young people's love of illustrated books and by their highly acute visual literacy, inspired by an exhibit of illuminated manuscripts from a visit to the Morgan Library, and by my own interest in graphic design, several years ago, I introduced into the summer sessions a special class on the creation of beautiful books in order to showcase the poetry and art created during the week. Books have ranged from hardcover folios, which you see above, to signature sewn fold-over paperbacks, to hardcover editions with diamond patterned spines. Sorry. What you're looking at, and I have to remark, is by Ellie French. She did a wonderful job with this. The 2 books that she made that are shown here at the Brattleboro Museum and Arts Center in 2016, part of a retrospective we did of the students' work. And looking at the one to the right, which is a pop-up, very interesting. It's a Native American proverb, and the quote there that she's illustrating is, "The frog does not drink up the pond in which he lives." Now, the students paste in their poems and art, obviously, and they create their pages. They design and work the page, so to speak. They use collage and drawing to embellish their work. They create image poems and daring inventions, spliced lines and stanzas, which we shall observe in the images that follow. Next image, please. Here we're looking at a work by Ashna Kinkabwala called Finding Home. We call it an image poem because the words and image are more or less together here. Using the margin, she creates some wonderful drawing that does reinforce what she is saying in her poem, which I shall read you now. Finding Home by Ashna Kinkabwala. Pencil hovering over paper, unsure of what to write, who to become, what to bring to life, whose story? The chipmunk, the horse, the man with the lame foot, or the girl who doesn't know herself? It spins a tale of magic places and long journeys and hard work about a girl trying to find herself. She travels far and wide, asks questions to the trees, the animals, the sky. They all say she knows, she just has to remember. And at the end of the tale, she knows, the girl with the pencil hovering over the paper. Ashna Kinkabwala. Could I have the next slide, please? This is a lovely image by Reese McGovern, which she did at age 16. She had been inspired by a volume on Hiroshige's woodblock prints that we have in the poetry studio. We have quite a few things to inspire our work by the students. Here she recreates something that's very much in the vein of Japanese woodblock print. And when I read to you the words that accompany this, you'll see how words and images very much connect here, very much in, as I say, the style of the Japanese woodblock print. Siberian elm, thousand-fingered hands rejoice as the low-flung clouds grace the outstretched leaves. You can just see and feel that happening from this wonderful image poem. Next slide, please. A little humor here by Isabel McCarthy called Pinocchio. You're familiar with the story, and I think this poem will find its way into the explanation for the image that accompanies it. Pinocchio, words pour carelessly from your mouth like water from a teapot labeled tea. But I can see that your nose is in another galaxy. Isabel McCarthy, age 14. Thank you very much. All right, next one. Thank you, Claire. Full-time Cartographer by Ella Bathory Peel. This is an extraordinary 3-page image poem that Ella did, following the myth of the journey, perhaps, trying to reach for self-discovery through sort of articulating one's life. It has so much in it. She breaks up the text, interestingly enough, into individual stanzas because she doesn't want to follow the regular map. She's encouraging us to make our own. Full-time Cartographer by Ella Bathory Peeler. Written at age 16. Cartographer, one who pieces together maps. Map, a navigation tool. Navigate, a verb to navigate, to travel, to float. Navigate, a command, drift, glide, voyage, discover. Take a left after the leaves drop and autumn approaches, a right before the buds burst into spring flowers. Listen to me, listen, but don't forget to see. Rise above, envision where you are going, and where you're from, but don't forget to see what's right in front of you. Shake the mist from your temples because I expect you to succeed. You know where you're trying to go, but you're too raw to evaluate when the pain becomes overpowering. You have to listen to me. The world is a big place, but there are worlds bigger than yours. I'm asking you, try harder. Envision a map of a place you don't know. Picture the topography, the colors, tastes, the saturation. But no, I won't help you. You're going to have to navigate without me through this world and others. I can't help you anymore. Ella Bathory Peeler, written at age 16. Next slide, please. I will conclude with this wonderful image by Linnea DiMarino, which she created at the age 13 to accompany a poem called, of all things, Tears of Broken Glass and Forgotten Gods. You'll see how apt that title is as I read it to you. What I'd like you to do is just rest your eyes on this image while I read the poem. Thank you. Tears of Broken Glass and Forgotten Gods by Linnea DiMarino, written at age 13. It's hard to remember her on days like this, when the sun shines bright and breezes caress you. For she is in a dark place and has been so for a long time, a place where the mold and mildew claw their way over the stone in a war to survive. This is where she sits, crying glistening tears of sorrow, pain, and broken glass. She sits on a seat of bones and burned books, with broken dreams and hopes surrounding her chair. They come in different forms, cracked and severed links of jewelry, shattered vases in sculpture, arts of unequal beauty never to behold, lost, forgotten puzzle pieces gray with age, never to see their homes. Clear and colored glass in which hopeful eyes gazed through or gave celebration, never to be used, just lie there, shattered. She didn't always sit here. She used to have a name, lost in all the pain. She was young with the world, enjoying the sun with her family, but then they gave her a job. While they rose as gods, she was left forgotten to care for the memories of those pushed away. The whipped ones whose blood drowned earth, the ones pushed from high places to lay shattered like the fragments around her chair, pushed from their community for no reason. The world grew to hate them, and she must hold on to that. So send a little love her way. so she won't sit with memories of hell, fire, and greed. Maybe then she can step into the sun and away from that sorrowful place of rock and stone. Maybe take her hand so her dark hair will no longer plaster to her red face. Don't let her cry any more tears of sorrow, tears of broken glass. That is the end. Claire, you can remove the image. And Ann will now take over and read us a few more poems. We're not ready for this one yet, Claire. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll let you know when we are.
What a treat to hear these voices, be a witness to the images. And as I said earlier, all of these students become our teachers. And as Megan said, and Trey, we hope you will spend a lot of time with the company of these poets and artists. I am going to read excerpts from the afterword, which I was not planning to write, but I did write it. Yeah. Another World was scheduled to be launched October 2019. Like so many other events and publications, the book's debut needed to be reconfigured due to COVID-19. Poets who were in 5th grade are now in middle school. Poets then in high school are now in college. As educators, parents, artists, can we create intentional spaces where our youth, through poetry, story art, express their diverse responses to this challenging time in history? To have opportunities that offer a shape to our students' thoughts and emotions is critical, not only for their well-being, but also for generations to come. Vital questions have pushed through the cracks of the pandemic. How to evoke compassion and create community stand out among the many significant ones. Can we imagine the language of poetry and art as ways to navigate these pressing social issues? If we are to build a healthier place in the world for everyone, might the creation of a poem or drawing offer a symbolic way to get close enough to wrap our arms around people who have experienced injustice or unbearable loss? At the same time, can we pause in our lives to celebrate the persistent beauty of nature, to draw strength from benevolent words and acts, from kinship with the world? Entering another season, we share a concern about the emotional health of young people who have spent hours alone before the screen. To raise the human spirit through poetry and art should not be considered as a question. Rather, it is imperative that the voices from this book tap us on the shoulder, reminding us that our children's creative expression can be a compass for how we should travel from today into all the tomorrows. That's part of the afterword. I'm going to end with a few poems. An 8-year-old boy walks into the studio announcing, "I know what I want to write about. Poetry is like love armies." That knowing is the clay that often shapes a good poem. In this instance, as in many others, the teacher becomes a midwife, helping to bring forth what already dwells within. How a first line or a salient image arrives from somewhere else often remains unknown. What I do believe is that the poet and teacher dwell in a moment rare and intimate where we recognize something powerful is transpiring at the intersection of our lives. Evil versus Love by Samuel Garbarino, written at age 7. Poetry is like love armies that hold off the dark. If poetry is locked in a dark trap, the world will turn black. Poetry threatens evil with weapons of happiness, soldiers of love. Poetry's wisdom wins the battle. Some water.
All right, Claire, could we please have that slide that you had up before?
Mm.
That's it, thank you. No, not that one.
Oh dear.
We'll get that. Okay,
Oh, there we
thanks,
are.
Claire.
Okay. So I would like to read the poem Back to the Shore of Tranquility, something we all need to hear. This is by Tay Weiss, written at age 13. Though your sun may only rise if the gate to your heart is open, though your moon may only set when you find beauty in your sorrow, though the ocean may pull you into a pool of despair, may you ride the waves back to the shore of tranquility.
Next slide, please.
So the book ends with these words by Joy Harjo, the first Native American to become the US Poet Laureate. And the art is by Grace Martinson. Anything that matters. Anything that matters is here. Anything that will continue to matter in the next several thousand years will continue to be here. Approaching in the distance is the child you were some years ago. See her laughing as she chases a white butterfly. Joy Harjo. I think we have a few minutes. So we would like to end our event with gratitude. So gratitude to the Literary Festival for the generosity of making it possible to launch our book this afternoon. Gratitude to Jerry Carbone for technical assistance and general support, and also to Sandy Rouse. We couldn't have done this without you both, truly. Gratitude to Claire Mannion for her assistance with Tony's slide projection. Gratitude to everyone who participated in this event. Char Denord, whose profound belief in the students' voices ultimately was the impetus for this book. To Trey Wentworth, assistant teacher, whose sensibilities certainly had a rich impact on the students' poems. Thank you to Frida, to Maze and Nana for reading their own poems and taking the responsibility so seriously. Frida emailed me many times saying, I'm at 2 minutes, I'm at 3 minutes. So thank you to the poets. Thank you so much. Thank you to Megan, mother of Ella. We miss Ella, but we are so grateful for your voice. Thank you, Megan. Gratitude to all of you out there who have accompanied us on the journey of birthing our book. Friends in Brattleboro, to friends in England, to friends on the Navajo Nation. So hello, everyone out there. We wish we were celebrating with you in person, but we hope to do so in the spring. Really, we bow to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We actually are on time, which is amazing. Thank you, everybody.